Jason Enrique. I'm a podcaster and I'm 36 years old.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So my first question is, what do you do?
Well, in the daytime,
Yeah, in
I'm
the
a-
daytime.
I'm, yeah, in the daytime, I'm a truck driver. I've been doing that for about 8 years. I actually just made 6-year anniversary at the company that I work for yesterday. So, congratulations
Amazing.
to me.
What company do you work for?
I work for a dry ice company called Continental Carbonic.
Cool. Yeah, I have family members and friends that are in like the logistics trucking
Yeah.
field. So I kind of understand that world. And like, you're like the guy that picks up the trailer and you're like driving it cross country?
Not cross country, but
Okay.
yeah. But basically, that's what it is. Yeah.
Got it. And when did you start like your podcast, and is that like your journey? Is that what you're trying to take to like become something that you do full time?
Well, to answer your second question, hopefully we'll see how it goes one day. But I basically started. This is actually pretty funny, and this is how the universe sometimes comes together. I had the idea of doing a podcast for quite some time. I would say right before the beginning of the pandemic. Before everybody actually started doing one during the pandemic. But then I didn't launch it until September 30th, 2021. And what I like about telling that story is that I had no idea that day was National Podcast Day. I actually found out it was National Podcast Day after the fact that I have uploaded it and launched it. So I kind of took it as a sign like, well, maybe this is supposed to happen after all, because I just launched my show on the day that it's supposed to be nationally accepted.
And what is your podcast called?
The name of the podcast, it's called First Class, Second Place. I've been doing it now for about a year and change. Basically, the show is about bringing people on that could bring in good conversation and good chemistry, and also depending on what they do, whether they're filmmakers, comedians, actors, other podcasters, content creator, or if I just feel like you're somebody that has something to bring to the table as far as conversation is concerned. If I believe in your talent and I believe in what you're doing, I'll do anything in my power as for my platform to put you out there in the best light possible.
Why the name First Class, Second Place?
So it initially started out as a Jersey-esque centric kind of podcast because somebody told me that I need to have a niche, and I love Jersey. I love being here. This is my home. I don't think I'm ever going to leave. And I kind of thought of that in the sense that I think so highly of it that it's a first-class state, but we're second place to like New York or anything else. Like kind of like that little brother mentality, and also I've really taken pride in having that underdog mentality all of my life. Like I've always used the underdog mentality to keep myself humble. So kind of mishmashed the two together, and I just thought one day, first class, second place, just kind of rolls off the tongue, and just went off from there.
What is your background, even like before the trucking industry and being a worker there? Like, what's your background as far as that underdog story? Like, why has that kind of been what you are bringing?
Well, it really starts off from being feeling like being the black sheep of the family. It pretty much originated from there, and then I also noticed that I was a lot different from other people in the sense that we didn't know it at the time, but now we're kind of like being more open-minded to a lot more things these days, and it was basically just a mental health issue. I've always been an advocate of mental health, especially as of lately, but at the time I wasn't aware that it was my own personal issues that I had to deal with instead of, blaming it on the rest of the world. And I kind of used that mentality where it's like me against the world, F everything else, everybody, so on and so forth. But now I've kind of honed it to the point where I use it as a humbling mechanism as opposed to just being a defense mechanism.
When did that start? That journey of finding that?
I would say that really started in my teenage years. I would say like maybe 12, 13, because like I said, I was born and raised here in Jersey, but I actually moved down to Florida when I was at a young age, because I was still a minor. My parents had split up, and that's where my mom wanted to go down there. She still lives there now to this day. And it was not my choice, but I had to go. I didn't have any say in the matter. And that was actually pretty detrimental, for lack of a better term, of my overall thinking and negativity that was just spilling into me. But over time, I just kind of learned how to balance it. But that's initially where it started out from, because I just remember being in a completely different state where I just stick out like a sore thumb. I'm not like any of these people. I'm being judged mercilessly for this and that, and I'm not having the support of my family, so on and so forth. And that's where it originated from. And then as I got older, I just kept that mentality. I just feel like it's part of my personality, and I just feel like as I get older, I still have that mentality. I still have that personality. I just hone it better.
Yeah, and is that something that you feel as though you're going to be able to flip for the people that you come into interaction with?
Yeah, more or less, because part of the reason why I have the show and I bring people on the show is because I feel like they're very extremely talented, and they're also phenomenal people that are not getting the recognition they deserve for one way or the other. So this is almost in a way to show them that, not only to humanize them and show my audience who they are, but also in my own kind of way of saying, like, hey, I got your back.
Got it. And who is your audience?
My audience is anybody that is willing to listen. Basically, what I mean by that is everybody is very big on mental health nowadays. Like I said, I'm a very big advocate for it. And also people that are looking for honesty. I want to build a career out of honesty, even if that means sharing some stories of myself that is kind of taboo or maybe not, really positive. But it's just me. I'm just spilling my guts, and I'm not afraid of my own skin. I'll show anybody who I am. And I feel like my audience basically gravitates towards that, and they see that, okay, it's okay to be myself. It's okay to not be afraid of my own skin. It's okay to be transparent and also make sure that, like, you're happy with yourself. Because that's something that I learned over time. And, it took me 36 years essentially, but I could honestly say for the first time in my life, I'm very happy about who the man I've become and who I'm going to become.
That's awesome. When did you start becoming an advocate for that mental health side of things? Like, what was that moment like for you?
It really started when my father passed away. When he passed away about 5 years ago from a heart attack, and when he was no longer in the picture, I started to take a deep dive into myself, because he was such a big part of my life that I feel like not to say that he got in the way of living my life, but I wasn't able to figure out myself, who I was, because I had to essentially take care of both people, him and myself. And then when he was when he unfortunately passed away, I took a deep dive into myself and who I really was, and I ended up realizing that the problem is not with me, and I'm not putting any blame or problems on anybody else. It's just that I feel like we come from a school where we become easily judgmental and we don't know exactly what a person's going through, so on and so forth. Now we're living in a time where people are more understanding. They want to be more helpful. They want to be more open-minded. And I feel like I'm just on that cusp where I know what it's like to be a pariah or an underdog in some cases, to now where I know where we need to go from here. And I just want to spread that message. So to really fully answer your question, it really started around about 5 years ago, 2017, 2018, where it was probably some of the worst times of my life mentally, and where I was emotionally, definitely with thoughts of suicide and so on and so forth. But me being able to rise out of the ashes, for lack of a better term, and knowing that I'm not alone, that feels, there's other people that feel the way I do or felt the way I do, it makes me realize that I'm not alone, they're not alone, and I just want to keep on spreading the positive message that we all matter.
Now, from 5 years ago, have you felt more support or maybe less of an underdog in a way from the people closest to you? And has there been more support shown?
That's funny you mentioned that. That's a great question, because the amount it's kind of a conundrum where the amount of support that I've been getting from the outside world is actually very exponential to what I'm used to. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I'd be getting the amount of love and support that I've been receiving from people on the outside world. However, it's also kind of ironic to see that the people that you think would be the most supportive of you, family and friends, the ones that are closest to you, it seems like they would only support to a certain degree. And I've basically had to learn that at the end of the day, I don't need their approval. If I'm like I said, if I'm comfortable in my own skin and I feel like what I'm doing is right in my heart and it's actually very beneficial for my well-being, then that's all that really matters.
Yeah, it is a very interesting thing, creating something for yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
And feeling as though you might have thought, like growing up or in the moment when you're creating it, that there's going to be immense support and it's going to make it easier because there's going to be that support system there.
Right. Yeah.
And to only find out sometimes that that's exactly what you didn't need. Like or it's exactly what you needed was the lack of support from certain things to allow yourself to put your foot down for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a very interesting perspective on it, but it allows sort of peace to settle in a way of like, maybe this was just perfect timing. Maybe this was just something that I needed to hear in order to think for myself.
Oh, absolutely. Because I'll tell you right now, I was that person that I felt like I needed the entire world to love me in order for me to succeed and make me feel like I had validation. Now I've come to terms where you should only really count the ones that matter, but the ones at the end of the day, the one that matters the most is yourself.
That leads me to one of my favorite questions, is at what point do you consider your movement or your brand to be a success?
That's a very good question. Very good question. I guess the only way that I could say that, and I don't know if I could put a timeline on it, but the best way that I can answer is when I feel like I have nothing else to prove. Because I think that's a driving force of why I'm doing the podcast and other creative projects and so on and so forth, because I feel like I'm still out to prove to a lot of people, but mostly myself, that I got something to prove, that, you know, I do matter. And I want to use my God-given talent to do that.
No, that's a great answer. I'm not sure how to follow up from that answer. That's a great answer. Have you proven more to yourself that you are growing?
Absolutely. I feel like I've proven myself immensely, but I also feel like there's more to be taught. There's more to be had. And one thing that's actually been very helpful in this whole process is I'm a completely different person than I was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And when I realized that I'm not that person anymore, I was out to get the approval and also the validation from people that I thought they basically reinforced this idea of this is who I was at the time. And, you know, at the end of the day, I told myself, you know what, if they think of me as the past Jay, then maybe that's just a sign that they should stay in my past, because I'm not going to change their mindset about who I am now as opposed to who I was then. They're just always going to have that preconceived notion. You can't change people's minds. It is what it is. So just if you're out of control, and maybe that's just a sign. I took it that, you know what, they think of the past me, so they should stay in my past as well.
Great answer again. That was a great answer.
Thank you.
You're a great speaker. Like you definitely have an awesome like talent of answering in a very it's like very dead straight. It's like you studied the answer, but it's really coming from your heart. I can feel that, but it's nice.
But I also think that's also you know, it goes off to you, because, you know, these are great questions, and I'm just, you know, trying to match the great answer as well.
Yeah,
so.
I appreciate that. So what did you think you would be at this age? And like, let's say from 15 years ago, what did you think you would be right at this moment? And then for a second question, what do you see yourself being in 15 years from now?
Honestly, I thought I'd be a family man by now. I'm 36 years old. Never been married. Don't have any kids. Still would like that one day. Only thing is that not a problem. Only thing is that I'm just not in a rush to do it. I think there was a time where I felt like I needed to have certain things in my life be done at this point in time, at this age. You know, setting timelines, deadlines, and I just realized that when you do that, when you put yourself in a box, you know, and it doesn't go your way, it's nobody wins. So, to answer your question fully, I thought that I'd be a family man by now. I thought maybe I would have like the whole shebang with like a wife and a couple of kids and so on and so forth. Career-wise, honestly, I thought I was going to be in music, because I've always been a big fan of music. I was always a big hip hop fan. At one point, I was doing that. Just realized that I wasn't nearly as good as I thought I was, and it just, you know, it was just a dream that was not very unattainable. not very passionate about it either, so it just was completely moot. But yeah, that's my answer. That's how I could answer that question.
And where do you see your podcasting and helping people get through kind of that underdog feel and talking about mental health? Where do you see that leading to?
Basically, letting people know that we've made a lot of strides in this day and age about helping each other and keeping an open mind, and understanding that our problems are much bigger than us, and sometimes it's out of our control. Whereas back then we felt like, if you got to go see a shrink or something, then you must be psychotic or whatever. Now it's basically me putting myself out there in my platform to let people know that I'm not afraid to be myself. I'm not perfect. I'm just like everybody else out there that's dealing with their own issues. But just don't be afraid to be honest with yourself. Don't be ashamed. Don't be scared. It's easier said than done, but maybe with my platform, it could show with my actions more than my words.
It's very interesting that there is a moment now that we can literally go on a podcast at someone's house, at a studio, and talk as though we're talking to a quote unquote shrink. Just let it out there. And then allow it to
You're essentially my therapist right now.
Yeah, and then allow it to go to the world and broadcast it in a way to show the sensitivity and show the openness to it. It is a very interesting feeling. I'm kind of at like a loss of words right now of like how that comment right there of like how scary it was to say that years ago. Like now it's literally, there's like so many platforms and like something that you're doing, and then Joe with Therapy Without a Degree,
right, shout out
and
to
then
Joe.
finding people through those platforms that make you feel normal and it doesn't feel like it's so oddball. And that's a great takeaway from like how I have met you, and then how, who knows what this relationship will be in a few years or in a few months, and feeling as though, okay, there's somebody else that I can literally just talk to and there not be any opinion to it or like judgment. And it's literally just to be yourself and be as honest as possible.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you speaking on that and being vulnerable and being able to then take that vulnerability to then allow other people to speak on it and
absolutely.
allow that platform. So I thank you for coming here as well.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
man. I
of
really
course,
appreciate
man.
this.
Of course, man. I'm interested to see where that platform leads you to, and I'm excited to go on your platform as well.
You're more than welcome.
Continue to follow it. I think that it's allowing a really cool space and going to create a community of vulnerability that is not, it's like acceptable, and it's also, it doesn't have to be just your maybe closest person or your therapist. It's like, this could be a normal conversation with someone that you just met.
Right.
And feel normal speaking about it and like being open to it.
And sometimes it surprises you how sometimes you'll connect with those people as opposed to people that have been in your lives for 30 years or so.
Yeah. I think I'm going to end it on that because I mean, I'm feeling I'm feeling like a piece of like, I kind of am like excited, like sitting, like sitting next to you and feeling like we're able to talk about this. And then I want like, I don't know, this conversation is giving me some kind of peace of mind that I feel like I was looking for.
Nice.
Through something. I'm not exactly sure how to pinpoint it, but I'm excited, honestly, to continue on a path of knowing you. So
Likewise, man. The feeling's mutual, man.
Yeah.
And just like I told you at Therapy Without a Degree, after meeting you the first couple minutes, I was like, this guy's just, he's it. He's this guy. He's that guy. Just feel
Awesome. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, man. Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm not really sure what else to say because it's like you answered the questions very like bam.
Yeah.
It was like bam.
Well, you had some great questions, man. I
Thank
felt like
you.
I really had to like, step my game up as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, hell
and
yeah.
And what I liked about it also is that I've done a couple of these before, and you've actually given me questions I didn't have answers already had for so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I've heard so many of these other questions before on other platforms that I pretty much already know what to say. This one was actually thought provoking, so I really appreciate that.
My favorite question that I always ask is the thing about what do you feel will be a moment where you find success, or what you think is success to you, because everybody's answer is like completely different.
Oh yeah.
Like I remember I asked him, and this is my best friend, and I didn't know what his answer would be at all. At all. And he too was like, that's a great question. And then you start analyzing like right in the moment, and you kind of are put on like a little bit of a shot clock when it is in a space, and like you were about what you're feeling in the exact moment.
Yeah. And
it's cool to capture, because the other thing that I really like about this is like, in my opinion, this is like 1.0. This is like the Why interview 1.0 for you.
Yeah.
And you could have done it 7 years ago, or you could have done it now, or you could have done it 3 years from now.
That's true.
But then it's cool to have a pinpoint of what you said in a moment that you might look at 10 years from now and be like, you could either be like, yeah, I was being like super honest with myself at that moment, or you might be able to look at it and say, you know what? I don't know if that was like the best version of myself, but you have literally words to analyze, and you have like a vision to see. So that's like
right about that, man.
that's like the cool thing about it is like, you might look at it in 5 years and be like, I'm not that person at all.
Yeah.
Or like, I love that person. I might need to find that person again.
Right. And if you asked me that question maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe, no, I would say 10 years ago actually.
Yeah.
And then afterwards I go look back on it, I'll be like, man, that guy was a fucking asshole back then.
Yeah, that's really what it is. In my opinion, that's really the essence of this, is the look back.
Yeah.
And saying, I might need to, my thing is like, I might need to find that person again. Right. And that's like, that might be a moment in the future that's like, yeah, that's exactly what I
Who knows if 10 years from now, I see this, what we just did right now, and I look back on that, I was like, and let's just say hypothetically, we live in a world where I feel like I finally have nothing else to prove. And then I go back and look at this Why episode, and I'm like, man, look how far I really did come.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.